agree. Our online support community for later in life lesbians is about to have a major upgrade. So, do you want to tell the nice people what's going on, or is it still a secret?
Oh, we are so ready to share this great news. I'll be happy to do the honors. We have found a new home online inside of a platform called Mighty Networks. We've created a space where we can build community, offer group support meetings, host workshops, offer courses, share resources, offer live events, and it's all in one place, which is so convenient for you and convenient for us. Think of it as your online neighborhood drop-in center for us later in life lesbians.
Well, I mean, that sounds fantastic. But wait a second. Is this just for women who are coming out or who are in the messy middle?
That's such a great question. This space will be for all later in life lesbians, no matter what stage you're in, from curious and questioning to navigating the messy middle to being fully out. When you subscribe, you get access to all kinds of support, no matter what stage you're in.
Amazing. So, what are you calling this later in life lesbian drop-in center? How can we find it?
We are named Authentically Us, and we're officially launching on February 10th, but you're free to check it out and sign up now at AnneMarieZanzal.com.
Okay, well, we'll drop that address in the show notes. That's www.annemariezanzal.com. And hey, I'll see you inside of Authentically Yes. I can't wait.
Me neither.
Hey, queer friends and allies. Welcome to Season 6 of Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA plus stories. Here's your host, Anne-Marie Zanzal.
Hi, this is Anne-Marie Zanzal, and welcome back to another episode of Coming Out and Beyond. I'm super excited today because we have a fellow late in life bloomer here, and her name is Kiki Joy Latham. She is a vibrant and soulful queer crooner known for her deeply emotional performances and a romantic at heart. A true nerd, she brings a unique blend of energy and passion to our music. Her voice, rich with soul and authenticity, captivates audiences, making every performance a memorable experience. Her love for the arts, musicals, plays, drags, and burlesque is constantly inspiring her. Bubbly, bright, and full of light. One meeting with her, and you'll never be the same. Oh, I'm so excited, Kiki. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
So, Kiki, I cannot wait to hear your story. So tell me your story.
Man, wow. So I'm currently residing in Minnesota. I'm actually from Ohio, a small town, Columbus. There, my childhood was interesting, very dark. However, we got moved here because my mom realized that my dad was crazy, and I had never seen so much diversity before. The neighborhood I lived in was predominantly Black, so to come here and see all the diversity was a shock to my system. But it eventually became an enjoyment. I got exposed to a lot of great music. I used to just listen to R&B, and then I found pop and rock and alternative, and it was so exciting. I was like, oh my God, there's like different music out here.
Let me ask you a quick question. I mean, did you know Prince before people knew Prince? I mean, are you too young for that? I can't tell.
My dad actually used to play. I knew Prince, but he was part of I think the Revolution. Prince Revolution.
Mhm.
So I knew his stuff through there. I love Diamonds and Pearls. That was like my
Mhm.
favorite song. But otherwise, I didn't know he was his own person that had his own music. So I came.
Wow. So your
Yeah.
dad played with Prince?
No, but he didn't play with him. My dad was a music connoisseur. He had a lot of the old vinyls, and so he'd be playing them, and I just get the tickle in my ear, like, wow.
So you moved to Minnesota, and it's funny because I've never heard of people describing Minnesota as diverse, but you must have been in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area.
Yes.
Okay.
The schools I was in initially was really diverse. That has it's not the same anymore. But
Well, I remember because Kiki and I talked before this. My daughter went to, my God, McAllister College, and they really, really intentionally recruited for diversity. What next?
well, I had never dated before.
Mhm.
My dad was very strict about that, and so when I came to the cities, the first person I ended up crushing on was a girl.
Mhm.
And I was surprised because I had never thought that was.
How old were you, Kiki?
Oh man, I believe I was 15.
Okay. So you were
Yeah,
crushing on a girl.
yeah. And she was beautiful. She had long brown curly hair, and we met in choir.
Mhm.
And she sung amazingly, and I just fell in love with her voice first, and then I thought she was beautiful. Unfortunately, her parents found out, and I remember being called to the principal's office, and she was white,
Mhm.
and the parents were there with the principal, and they looked at him and told him, they said, "We don't want this nigger with our daughter."
Kiki,
Yeah, it was.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. It was impactful. I never, after that, I just like shut down. I never looked at that part of myself again. And so that was a hard time in my life. I started sleeping with men, and I didn't realize it was because I was looking for a father. That I wanted that fatherly love, and so I got unfortunately groomed a lot by
Older
men
men?
older than me.
Yeah.
So that was horrible. But I couldn't get it out my head. Like I was like, I really like that girl. So I started working at a gas station overnight, and there's a girl that worked with me, and I don't know how it ended up happening, but we ended up making out. And it was the most. I was at this point. I was 20, and it was the most passionate kiss I'd ever felt. Like I had been with men, and I would cry after. And
I understand. You're talking to somebody who gets it.
yeah, I was like, why am I crying after sex?
Just like I remember the first time I kissed a woman, and it was like, and I had only been with men previously. And I'm like one of those women that, like, when I talk about straight sex, I'm like, it's fine. Whatever. I can do it. I'm not disgusted by it. Some lesbians are disgusted by it. I just wasn't disgusted by it or anything. It was fine. But once I kissed a woman, I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. Like when they talk about kisses in movies, I thought that was just all bullshit. But when I kissed a woman for the first time, I was like, okay, now I get it. I was 50. I was old. So yeah, I was old.
Great, stop it.
I'm actually 60 now, but I was 50 when I kissed a woman for the first time.
You're coming out ages is backwards. I swear, it's beautiful.
I know it is. You do get younger, don't you?
Yes.
I can show you some pictures of myself when it was like the summer before I came out. I looked so matronly. I was really going into matronly mode.
Yeah.
And then I came out and I literally lost like 10 years.
Wow.
It was really amazing. So you kiss the girl.
Yes.
You're like, okay, this is what it is.
Well, so I thought. Fortunately, at that time, I was my home life was very dark, and I was constantly wanting to like end my life. The man that I dated at the time that was actually my age told me I was too masculine and that I need to put on makeup and dresses. And I should have known back then. I had an afro, and I'd wear men's clothing because the men I dated had great clothes, so I just started buying or wearing their clothes. So I ended up getting caught up in religion. Back then, I had never been a part of it. I just happened to walk into a youth center where they were playing some really good music. I just needed some water. It was hot. She was like, "You should come back. This place is awesome." And so ended up finding religion right around that time.
Can you tell me what flavor? What
Yeah.
denomination? Okay.
Yeah. So initially, I was hanging out with a bunch of people my age at this place. It used to be called the New Union. It's no longer institution, but they play alternative Christian music. It was awesome. I had a group of girlfriends. We hang out and be like, yes, Jesus is the way. But then I found myself needing more, and so one of the men in our group invited me to I now know it's called an apostolic church. So from then on, I was sucked in. I had never experienced love that way, or like I had heard of God. I didn't know if he was he, she, they were real, but I had never felt hope or happiness or joy until I joined that church. Yeah, unfortunately, I
They're
lived.
very anti-LGBTQ. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
in which I was denying still. So
It worked. Well, but it also makes a lot of sense. I mean, the words you use to describe your childhood is dark, and here you find a community that is not only welcoming, they're loving, they're kind to you as long as you follow their rules. Of course, like, I mean, if I was you, I would have done the same thing. I mean, like, I think that's really normal for people that are feeling a little lost and rejected. And that's when I don't know if it's good or, I mean, like, that's when harmful religion can really prey on people. I don't think apostolic church people think they're harmful. And so I want to be very clear about that. But, here you are, a little queer girl, and looking for love, which
Yes.
you've already, and like they gave it to you.
Yes. They loved my singing. They loved, I didn't realize the power I had back then, but they loved my energy and my joy. But I had never had joy until I found God. um it that would be a whole other podcast, but it was
Well, actually, we're going to talk about that because as I said to you when we communicated, that I've been really focusing on the spiritual side of life. So tell me what it was like to find God for you.
So I had a hairdresser, and she was just really beautiful and sweet, and I would tell her constantly how my mother was just really, I didn't realize it back then, but she was a narcissist, and so I was in a constant state of fear and
Trying to please her.
sadness. And she actually invited me to her church, and it was a mega church in Brooklyn Park. I forgot what it's called, but it was run by Matt Gammon. And they said, anybody want prayer, come up front. And so I went up for prayer, and I wanted to receive God. And when they prayed for me, it felt like all these chains fell off of me. I had always walked like hunched down, and I always covered myself. Like I tried to be as invisible as possible. And when those chains fell off, I cried, and I actually couldn't stop crying for an hour. And I remember I kept saying, I have to tell other people about this feeling, because I knew other people who felt like I did, just lonely and depressed and rejected. And for that brief moment, it was like God swooped in and was like I felt like, oh my gosh, like I'm not
I'm not
alone.
alone. Yeah, I get that. I get that. So I can understand why you like, I mean, gosh, having those feelings like that and having that connection, I can understand why you went down that path. So you go down the path of the apostolic church. They love your singing. They love your energy. You do have great energy, by the way. So I completely understand why. So then what happened?
So initially I was very obedient. I did everything they told me to do. So we couldn't date. We had to wait for God to send us our husband. So I spent a lot of my time at the church. Apostolic churches have many services, Bible studies, conferences, and even our Sunday services would be like 3 or 4 hours long. But I thought that was normal. I couldn't have friends in the outside world because they were considered worldly and they didn't want us influenced. I got really sucked in, and then they kept asking me for money, but I thought I was doing the right thing because it's like tithes and So they had me for about 4 years, and then I graduated high school, got a good corporate job, and I started to want to experience more. It was very hard for me having this Christian life where I'm supposed to disciple people to Christ and, stay holy and sanctified. And then I would see this other world though of people going to happy hour and hanging out in groups and cussing and swearing. We weren't allowed to do that either. So no, and then no worldly music. No, we could only watch certain movies. And I was like,
Someone who loves music, that must have been torture.
oh my gosh. I took every CD I had to a cheapo. Cheapo was on back then. I might be aging myself, but I was like, here, and they gave me next to nothing for them, and I said, I don't care. I said, I love God. But as I got involved in this corporate world, I started feeling myself like, is this the way? Um, at this point, I was also looking for a fatherly figure. And so the pastor of our church at the time, I really looked up to him, and I wanted him to mentor me because I felt lost. And his wife ended up accusing me of trying to steal him from her. And I was like, what? I'm waiting for God to save my husband. I don't know what's your husband, So that was hard for me because of my childhood in the darkness. It triggered me to a point where I ended up leaving that ministry.
Which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, it was, woo. I kind of partied. So I started drinking, and I started going to the club. I still don't know back then why I did that, because I still, even though I was doing all these worldly things, I was committing these sins, I was still like, I want to go to heaven, and I want to stay saved. But it was just like, it was so fun to experience that nightlife.
And how old were you? Like mid-20s?
I was mid-20s. Yeah.
That's the time of your life to do that. And so you mentioned sin. So how would you define sin? I'll tell you how I define it, but I'm curious how you define it.
Ooh. Okay, so the church used to tell me was anything that goes against the word or the will of God. The church I was in, the 10 Commandments were bam. That was the end all be all. Yeah, so that I knew that me going to strip clubs and listening to worldly music and going to regular clubs was wrong. But I just
Do
I
you
thought hide.
do you feel that now?
No.
Okay. Because for me, I define sin as first of all, I don't really use God because God is a problematic word because people have their own. So I use universe, I use ultimate concern, I use higher power. I use God for people who are comfortable with that, but I have a real wide range. And I also am very respectful for people who don't believe in God. That's their journey. It's not mine.
Yeah.
And so for me, like it's what separates me from the divine.
Yeah.
So like when I think about like dancing at a club and like just say you're dancing and having a great time, that can be some of the most divine experiences you can have because you feel joy a lot of times, especially if you're in a queer club, because there's nothing like queer joy. Like
No.
and I feel that love and joy come from the divine. So like to me, that doesn't separate me from the divine just because I'm in a queer club dancing or singing, there's a piano bar and I'm singing songs, I mean so for me that doesn't feel like sin. You're experiencing the world and also like still having these messages, this is sinful, this is wrong. So
Yes.
what happened next?
So I was lonely. I actually, I'm sorry, I should have said it before. I ran away from home at 17.
Mm-hmm.
So I had been on my own since then. So that's how this church was able to get me so easily.
Yeah.
And so once I had to leave that church, I ended up dating a man who was an alcoholic. And I was working at a bank at the time. And so I was trying to make sure they were giving me a chance. I was trying to make sure, I'm on time and he ended up leaving my house without my keys. And I didn't even know he had my keys. And so I found him finally came back like 3 hours later. He passed out on my floor. I said, "Oh my God." I said, "I'm going to hell." Like, this is not, everything's going bad because I should be in a church. Fully believe that. I was like, I need to find a church. So I looked in the phone book. There were still phone books. And I found another church and I went and it was super small. What I love about the apostolic church is they really challenge you to not only to go into the spiritual, but to find your own walk with the universe. And so when I went there, they let me know, they're like, "Oh, you're full of," they were very prophetic. They believe they heard from God. And they're like, "Oh, you're full of sin and you've got demons attacking you." And you're like, "We're going to lay hands on you." And so they did. And it took an hour and a half. And I was like, I didn't even know it took that long. I was like, they were praying for different things with me. And then I was like, "Oh my God, this church is the way." Like,
Yeah.
how do they know all this stuff? Like, that's how they always got me because they would know stuff I had never told anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined that church, but what I didn't know is that was also another my therapist ended up calling them cult churches where they suck you in and you have to do things their way. And the good side to that is I discovered my love for, I call it spiritual dance. Sometimes I'll be listening to worship songs or singing them and I'll just start moving and I just let my body flow. Sometimes I feel like there's a presence in my home and it helps me stay grounded and safe. However, the church I was in, I didn't know it, but I was like, why is this church so small? It's amazing. Unfortunately, when you didn't follow the rules, you were extremely punished. I gave tithes at my other church. At this church, there was tithes, there was first fruits. You were supposed to give your gross, not after gross. You were expected to give 10% of that. And if you wanted to be in the cool club, you had to follow every rule. So once again, at this point, I haven't dated for I've missed my 20s. I'm hitting 30. And I'm like, "Oh, they love me and it's okay and I'm happy." And then I got a really good job at 30 because I had been in this corporate banking world. And so for so many years, I was like, "Oh, I get to be a fraud analyst. I get to investigate stuff." I'm a nerd. So I love that stuff. I love digging.
Cool. They're lucky they found you.
Yes. I was like, "Woo!" I was like, "Yes, let me do this." So I had not been touched at this point in, I would say, at least 18. It felt like 18 years. Let's see, no, at least 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to church. I would cry because I was so lonely. And the pastor would pray for me. He was like, I need other women to come around and hug Kiki. I'm sorry, that was my dead name back then, Lakeisha.
Okay.
Everybody come hug Lakeisha. And they would hug me and I just cried. And I remember begging and pleading with them. I said, could you come to my apartment at the time? I said, could you come spend time with me? Can we do something together that's beyond church? No one would ever want to do anything with me.
Were they a black church or a white church?
They were a black church.
Black church. Interesting.
I know. Yeah, it was. I would see them online going to like, I was living on my own, so I couldn't afford like fancy restaurants and stuff. And so they would go to fancy restaurants and I would see them online tagging everybody else. I was left alone. At one point, I even went with them to Vegas for the pastors to renew their vows, which I still don't understand why we went to Vegas. Because that's like Sin City.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I couldn't afford a lot of things. I ended up being stuck in my hotel room. So they were going to shows. They went to the Las Vegas sign, didn't bring me in. So I started to crack. The devotion that they had for me, I said, something's wrong. I don't know how everybody feels about this, but sometimes I feel like the universe talks to me. And I started hearing like, this church is not healthy. It's not right. There's something wrong. And then I was longing for touch. So I went and got a massage.
It must have been wonderful.
Oh my God. I asked for a woman because unfortunately, in my past, I've been raped and molested by men.
Yeah.
So,
I never have a man do a massage.
yeah.
I
So I was like, it's okay, Kiki. I said, you know, it's okay. You're holy, you know. And I remember she touched my back and I moaned. And I was like, she was like, are you okay?
Well, she probably, I mean, first of all, she probably gets that all the
Yeah, I didn't know. I was so naive. I didn't even know massages were a thing. My friend told me about them, and I was like, oh, okay. So the next day, I went to church, and I had a meeting with my pastor. And I said, oh my God, I was lusting after a woman. I need prayer. And so they laid hands on me, and they said, well, it's because you've been sexually abused by men. They said, we need to heal that part of you, so then God can give you your husband. So they found a man for me, and I loved him. He was very sweet. He was a prophet in the church. I felt like he saw my pain. He would always come pray for me and hold me. So we were supposed to be married. And I'm like, oh, finally, you know, like then it turned out he was sleeping with another woman in the church and he got her pregnant. So we never made it to the altar. It
Thank
never.
goodness, right?
He is currently in prison, unfortunately, for molesting his stepdaughter.
Well, thank goodness.
Yeah.
If you believe in the universe was I know it was probably really painful at that time, but the universe was taking care of you. Yeah.
It was rough though. I was like, oh, I said I'm so lonely, you know, so I eventually finally left that church too. Well, unfortunately, the pastor who I saw as a father called me. At this point, I was going in and out because I felt like there was something wrong with him. But I was like, I really want family. I want a place to call home. But every time I left, bad things would happen. And so I kept going back, and the universe would always watch out for me. I can't tell you how many times I almost took my life or was raped or just in utter depression. I felt like I would just cry into my carpet.
Well, because you were not living your authentic life. You were trying to live this church lady life that you thought was the right way because probably conditioned to believe that. And it just wasn't that's not your path. That's just not your path. No wonder you were like depressed and suicidal and stuff like that.
It feels so good to know that was the reason why now.
Yeah.
What is wrong with me? Like, I was like, my church told me I was schizophrenic. I had never been diagnosed, but that's what they said. So I took on that badge because they said, you keep coming in and out. You don't know what you want. So eventually the the male pastor, he kicked me out. He said, you can't keep coming back and forth. He said, I don't want my other congregants to expect that the universe is going to bless them when they're sinning. And I remember I fell to my knees. I was in the parking lot and I just cried. It felt like I lost a father. Sorry. Yeah, that was hard.
Well, it sounds like he was very important to you, and to be rejected by somebody that you cared about. Of course. I'm so sorry, Kiki. That must have been really, really painful. And, you know, it's like this dance where you're trying to find community and friends and then these, like a lot of us do, you keep basically replaying your childhood over and over again.
You're
So, I mean, that we all do that, you know, because we're trying to fix it. So then you're rejected by this church, and it caused a lot of pain.
So it's funny. It's funny. So funny you said that, and repeating my, my childhood. I ended up going back to the first church that rejected me. That the way the wife said that. They were in a smaller building. They were actually 5 minutes from me, and so I was like, maybe I fucked up. I said maybe I need to go back to the beginning. And when I got there, the pastor actually apologized to me, him and his wife. They was like, we're sorry for how we treated you. They said we're just in a bad place. They said we really respect your gifts and we want you here.
That must have felt validating for you.
Oh my God. I was like, take all my money. I'm not going to just put my wallet up, like, make it rain. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
I wanted so much to be accepted. And I was like, oh, I would be sitting there and they're like, Kiki, we want you to come pray for this person. I now know it's because I'm an empath, but I didn't know it back then. And so I laid hands on people. And it was like their life would flash in my head. And I would start talking to them. And then when I opened my eyes, they would just be crying. Some people I knew just needed a hug, so I would go to them, I would just hold them, I would just cry in my arms, and I would just rub their backs. And it's crazy because I wasn't giving that to myself, but I was giving it to others. And then they let me start singing, so I would sing on the praise team. I was like, yes, I'm happy. Yes, I'm happy. No, I wasn't. I said, why am I still suicidal? And then I would ask them, I said, could you come hang out with me? I said, I'm lonely. I said, I'm trying not to be in the world. I said, but I need friends. And no one would come. They would only come when I had free stuff to give. So I started giving my stuff away. I was like, well, I have some free food or I have some furniture. But I would just be so happy they would come in my house and spend time with me. So then COVID happened. And I got the job I have now. I was maybe in the office for 3 months and they're like, okay, it's time to go home. I was like, oh, okay. I have not been in the office since. But me being as extroverted as I was, to be shut down in my apartment by myself, that was from March to May. I don't know how I'm still alive.
Well, and also too, so it sounds like your later in life experience happened then.
Yeah.
And I want to validate you because a lot of women came out after COVID because they had to sit and spend time and look at themselves. And is that what, I know you were depressed during that time and it was hard, but did you do some really self-reflection during that time?
Actually, I did a lot of crying. And yeah, I was like, what have I done with my life? I was like, look at me. And then we switched to online service at my church. But they wanted people to come in. They wanted them to believe God that they would not get COVID if they came to church. And so I was just too scared. And they're like, and they made fun of me.
Actually.
Yeah. They made fun of me in front of everybody. They was like, oh my God, if you're too afraid to go to church, come to church by wearing a mask, and your faith is not there. And I remember crying.
Okay, Kiki, I'm just going to name it. It's spiritual abuse.
Yeah.
That's spiritual abuse.
Yeah. It was, I just cried. I was so embarrassed. There's like people online, and that was the last time I went to that church. And then I have two chosen moms who helped me come out. And they're like, we think you should get a therapist. A lot of people in the Black culture don't believe in therapy.
I know, yeah.
There was times in my life I wanted to, but I was told you need to pray more. You need to read your word more. You know, because they said therapy was worldly. And so, but I couldn't take it. I was so just isolated. So in May of 2020, I got a therapist. At our first meeting, I told her my story. And she said, Kiki, she said, do you think you're gay? And I remember just crying. I said, I don't know. I said, maybe I'm bisexual. I don't really have a relationship with my mom, unfortunately. And I was always thinking of ways to please her. And so to get back in her good graces. So I was like, if I be with a man, you know, I can give her the grandchild she wants. But I couldn't do it. As a matter of fact, I tried in 2019 and it was just horrible. I was so happy it didn't go all the way. I was like, bye.
But it also sounds like therapy was a lifesaver for you.
I would not still be here.
Well, I remember, I don't want to go into my story here, but I remember the third and final time I came out. My therapist, I told a long story, and the therapist said, Anne-Marie, and the story was like, what are you waiting for? And I remember like that moment of like, it was like my life flashed before my eyes. And I said, I think I'm gay. And I started crying. I cried because I knew I was married at the time. I had been married to my husband for 27 years. I had 4 kids. I mean, it was going to be a lot to change my life. I knew that. And also I didn't know how I was going to do that at that point. But I remember feeling like it was like, this is going to be hard in Pandora's box. And a lot of tears. So with you, when you finally had someone just come out and ask you, what did it feel like?
It felt like relief.
Yeah, I bet.
I was like, oh my God, I'm safe here. Like I can explore that part of me and not worry about being shamed or shunned by my mom, by my sister, my brother, by my church. I was like, I can talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
My birth name was Lakeisha Yvonne Latham. That's the name I was born with.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started going to therapy, I searched. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm queer. I'm queer. She had me join a group. It was I don't know if it's still around, but it was like Twin Cities bi plus people.
Mm-hmm.
So I was bi. Like I was like, I'll probably give my mom a child.
Well, this is the thing. Like most women coming out later in life define as bi first.
Yes.
Because we are so acculturated, not because we want to be with men, but we are so acculturated to think that being with a man is better
Yes.
than being with a woman.
Yes.
It's crazy because for me, being with a woman is so much better. It is just like, it's who I am. And I'm really comfortable with that now. But it took me a really long time to get here. Because I was raised I'm a minister, I'm an ordained minister. So I was raised with religion too. And it took me a long time to realize, even though I wasn't raised with that kind of religion, mine was more on the liberal side. It took me a long time to realize how much religion hampered me in my walk as a woman through this world, because I was always supposed to serve and take care. That's what I was supposed to do. And I still serve and take care, but I do it because I want to, not because someone's telling me to do it. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank God for this therapist. Thank goodness she asked you that question and you found this group that all of a sudden you have all these queer women, right? And so what, did you like find a girlfriend then or like anything like that?
So I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I hadn't been in a dating scene in like decades. I was like, what in the hell? And I was the oldest person in the group. At the time I was 38. I was like oldest by like 15 years.
Wow.
Oh shit.
Don't worry, there's lots of us.
So I ended up meeting a woman in there. We ended up messaging. She was super nice. And so we talked from like the end of May to July. And I finally asked her, I said, would you feel safe to come over? I said, I want to learn how to talk to women. Because, we talk to each other like, oh, you're so pretty. I'm like, you're pretty. Are you queer? Like, I didn't know how to, do the conversation. And so she came over and I'm a big nerd, as you can tell. So I'm in my Batman pajamas and thinking we're just going to like talk. She sat down and she was like, Kiki, I like you. And I was like, what? And it was like, I'm by myself. There's no past. There's no family. I'm in my own apartment. Like no one can tell me what to do. And but I wasn't saying that to her. I was just staring at her.
Yeah.
In my hand, I'm having this conversation. And she was like, do you want to kiss me? And I was like it was like divine. I was like, what? And so I kissed her. And it was the sweetest, most, I had never felt fire like that before in my body. We weren't supposed to go that far, but we ended up having sex. And she was like, what are some things you want to try? And so we did those things. Because of my history, I asked her permission with every step along the way.
Well, I just heard that, which was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yep. I was like, are you okay? But I swear, and I saw constellations. Like I remember looking up at the ceiling and like feeling like there were stars and like Milky Way things happening, and I was like, she was soft and beautiful and smelled wonderful, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gay.
And it's also too like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yes.
I am not supposed to be dating men. I am not supposed to be trying to make this work. I'm just like, my normal is being with women. That's my normal.
Now, I would say this is the sadder part of my queer journey. I realized I didn't relate. I used to have like huge breasts. I hated them. I used to have long hair and I hated it. I was taught, my mom was from Georgia, so I was taught your hair was your crown. So I tried many different ways to keep the hair in my head, but I didn't like it. But that girl, it only lasted a few weeks. I found out she was married.
Mm-hmm.
So the second girl I met was also married, but she told me, I told her, I said, I can't do this. I've been through this before. She said, I'm going to leave my husband. She sent me a picture of her cutting her ring off her finger. So I believed her. I'm very romantic. I'm very old fashioned. I love being in love. I love romancing my person. And I didn't realize with women how intense and passionate it could be.
A lot of feel good hormones with two.
Yeah, it's a lot of feel good hormones. It's almost like, so I started dating her. I talked to her about it. I said, if I cut my breast off, I said, will you stay with me? And she said yes. And so I had a huge reduction done, and she ended up leaving because she wanted someone more femme. I had cut my hair and done that, and so and then I met another girl after her, also married too. I just figured this was a norm because I'm like, everybody's late bloomers.
Well, a lot of times, yes, in the beginning they are still married, but there's a lot of late bloomers who are not married. We have to find you the right community. I can help you with that because
Please help me. It was so hard because I was a teenager. Because they say when you first come out, it's like I'm like, I want to be in love.
well, no,
You know,
it's also the sex is so amazing.
the sex.
For like for like 6 months to a year, it is like you're like a 14-year-old boy.
Yes.
We call it, in our community, we call it a second adolescence because I think, and I don't know why we call it a second, because I think a lot of times we didn't have a first.
No, I didn't.
Sometimes our first adolescence was performative, like, oh, I'm supposed to like boys. Okay, let me find a boyfriend. I mean, your first adolescence experience got shamed, like,
Yes.
in a horrible way. And my first experience, my very first any type of sexual experience was with a girl, but that went in the shame bucket right away. And I, thought I did. It took me, it wasn't until I came out, Kiki, that I was like, that's normal for somebody that's a little lesbian. That is normal. That was my normal, but I filed it away as shame. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering when, looking back at that first experience with the girl that was when you were 15, do you realize oh, that was so normal?
Yeah. Now I do.
Yeah. Question of curiosity. Do you know if she's gay?
No, I have not talked to her since.
Oh, okay. You should try to Facebook stalk her and see if she's gay.
I'm like, hey, how are you doing?
A lot of my clients actually, like the girls that they knew in high school or college, they'll go back and try to find them, and the majority of them are living a gay life.
I wish I remember her name. She was absolutely stunning, and I told you for her when she was blind, and I told her, I said, I'm black. Is that okay? She said, yeah. I remember she used to trace my face with her hands, and I was like, I know I was in love with her. I was like, wow.
Well, yeah, of course, it's first love, and now you realize, oh, that's some. It's just too bad her parents got involved. They sound like they're awful people. So
yes.
So you're like in this exploration phase, and also, are you like you said, you had a breast reduction. You look very masculine center.
Yes, I
look like a beautiful butch woman.
Thank you.
You really do. You look like a beautiful butch woman. Does that work for you, Kiki?
I'm here for it. Unfortunately, though, it's made my life hard. So I've done a lot of healing. I'm with a beautiful trauma therapist. But this was my pattern because once I went masculine, I almost went toxic because I had never felt seen as a cis woman. I had never felt, like all I had known was rejection.
Well, Black women fight to be seen all the time.
And facts. And I was like, oh, I feel invisible. And so then these women were like, oh, but you're so handsome. And so I went a little extreme with it. It's to a point where all I did was dress masculine. I'm not saying that's extreme, but it was extreme for me because there was a soft side to me I was hiding. I was afraid to show her because she had been rejected. And it took my third married partner to she was like, can I make love to you? Because I was just like having sex. I was like, this is great. I get to explore the woman's body. I'm like, oral sex is amazing. I wasn't allowing myself to feel. I was scared, but I knew the physical passion was amazing. And so I remember she laid me back and she made love to me. And I was freaking out. I could feel stuff happening, and I was like, no, I want to try and get up. She's like, no. She said, lay down. And everywhere she kissed me, she said, I love you. She said, you're so beautiful. You're so special. And I remember I cried that whole time. And then she held me, and I realized there was a soft side of me that still wanted to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, she didn't like that. She liked me masculine all the time. And so when I started embracing that side, it didn't work. So she left too. And so I was like, so I felt like every time I tried to embrace parts of me, it was at a cost. And so it was really triggering, and it caused some trauma for me. And then we fast forward to now. I'm softer now. So yes, I'm definitely masked. I tried growing my hair. I was like, no. So much for
I like this mask center too. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I love mask center. I'm like, I'm handsome. Like, I'm beautiful.
You are handsome. You're
yes, thank you. But it's like I'm invisible. So
not after this podcast. Ladies, if you want to meet a nice masculine center butch woman, if you're just listening on Apple, go to my podcast on YouTube, and you will be able to see Kiki Joy in person.
Thank you, sweetheart. My ex I have currently, she's my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
She was the first woman who's also married. I don't know.
You've got, okay, so I'm going to coach you a little bit. Is there a piece of you that is afraid of intimacy, like real emotional intimacy with a woman? And there's a reason why you keep choosing married women.
Actually, no. I kept choosing them because I thought that was all that wanted me.
No.
Yeah, that's in all seriousness. I'm actually demisexual.
Mm-hmm.
I love long conversations, laying in bed naked, talking.
Mm-hmm.
I believe dating with intention. Every day, every moment to me is special.
Mm-hmm.
And I can honestly tell you that if you asked on my previous girlfriend, no one never loved me the way Kiki did. I just thought that was all I deserved because I had been rejected my entire life. Mm-hmm. So she actually, and I'm not going to say her name because I want to keep that private.
Let's keep it private.
She was the first one to really love me, but not just every woman I dated was agnostic. So I hid my spiritual side. She understood my spiritual side. And I finally was able to talk to a partner about my love for the universe. And she actually moved in with me. Mm-hmm. I had never lived with someone before. It was horrible.
You're probably set in your ways.
I'm very set in my ways. Yeah, so it was horrible. We argued I had never argued before. I'm a very gentle soul. And she actually proposed to me in December of not last year, but the year before. And I said yes. And the next day I said, what the hell am I doing? She's still married. It ended up falling apart. And and now we're good friends now. We're best friends. But I now have the tools. My trauma therapist has been amazing. And I now desire to stay single until I meet someone single ever because of the way I look. And a lot of women pass me by. They immediately assume I'm a guy. And I'm like, if you would just talk to me. Mm-hmm. And it's been very painful. I actually was crying about it yesterday. It's hard enough being Black right now. Feeling invisible is horrible. Mm-hmm. And all I want is to love someone who's 100% available to me, not just physically, but also mentally, emotionally.
Yeah, you say, you and I talk the same language because I always say that, people think it's just about sex, right? It's not just about sex. I mean, and a lot of times, a lot of us have had sex that wasn't correct for us. So when we talk about sex and be like, oh my God, it's because we've experienced joy with sex in a way that we never did. And we're often older. We're 40, we're 38, 40, 50. I was 50. But it's who can meet your spiritual, intellectual, physical, and emotional needs. Yes. That is what, when we're queer, that's what we're searching for.
Yes.
And, it's like the opposite gender. It's not that we don't like them. They just simply can't meet our needs because, and if you're a gay man, a woman's not going to meet your needs. She's just not. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, why do we have to be so like there's only one way to do this thing? And that's just ridiculous. So, but I do hear you that as a you got to move to Atlanta, Kiki.
I know. I want to move so bad, but I have such
good community
and family here. Unfortunately, 90% straight, which drives me crazy. I know. I was like, when I go home to Columbus, I go home to visit my sister. I get hit on all the time.
Mhm.
And last year I went to Portland for a week, which was amazing. And I'm literally walking down the street, I'm getting hit on. I walk into a video game store, I get hit on. I walk into a bakery, I get hit on. And I was like,
You need to move.
yes,
You just need to move. You need to make the commitment and go someplace. In Atlanta, like my wife jokes, she goes, if I take you to Atlanta, all the black butches are going to be hitting on you. So I'm like, you need to go someplace where your people are.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Your queer people are.
yeah,
Because, and queer people, like queer women will be, I could see you. Like I would see you. I would know you're a black butch woman. I mean, like I would know that. But like straight people don't see it. Like queer people can see it. So, maybe that's the next thing. You have a good job, you can move, maybe finding a place where you can be seen, because in Minneapolis or wherever you are right now, it sounds like you're not being seen. And you need,
yep. Very clicky. They're
yeah.
very clicky here.
So we're going to wrap up now. Do you have a coming out song?
Yes. Okay.
I want to hear your voice. So can you sing a little bit of it?
Yes. Every inch of me is trembling, but not from the cold. Something is familiar, like a dream I can reach, but not quite hold. I can sense you there, like a friend I've always known. It's arising, and I feel like I am home.
Well, that's going to be our short that we're going to put out, because I want to cry. You have a very beautiful voice, Kiki. Thank you for sharing it with us. Do you have a book or a movie by the way, what song was that?
Sorry.
My bad.
It was Show Yourself. Tina Mazel from Frozen 2.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a book or a movie that really...
Gosh, when I finally read Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
Yeah. Everybody loved, all the old late in life lesbians love that book.
And that's what I was doing. I said, it's the late in life book. I said, me, yes. And I did the Audible. I loved her voice. It was so warm and homely and understanding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I love that's the beginning of the book where she talks about the panther, or it's panther, I think, right? And pacing back and forth. I get that. Because I always felt very, very restless in my life before I came out. And since coming out, that restlessness is gone. And man, did I hate that restlessness. It was really hard. And I don't have that anymore. I'm really happy in my life. And, I love my wife. Like my ex-husband, I spent a lot of time wondering if I should be married to him, Yeah. And, he's a good dad. If you met him, you would like him, but what the problem is I'm gay. You know what I mean? And he's very happy now with a very straight woman. So, and very straight, and they love each other. And I'm very happy for the both of them. How do you describe your life now, Kiki?
Despite everything I've been through, I love my life. I have a safe place where I can fully express myself artistically, musically, physically. My chosen family brings me so much joy.
You need a good chosen family.
Yeah. That's why I haven't moved, honestly. But...
yeah, I can understand. I mean, your sense of belonging has been really challenged a lot. So I can understand, like, I'm telling you to move. You're probably like, Anne-Marie, I'm not moving. Like, I get it. Like, you finally have a place where you belong and you're not being told how to live your life.
Yes. I also love the arts. I just saw Hades Town last night.
Mm-hmm.
It was an incredible musical. I love that I'm able to experience musicals and plays and drag shows, and it's been...
You ever done drag?
I tried being a drag king, and it wasn't my thing. I didn't like the lip syncing, and so
I also don't like. I'm not a drag queen. I like drag queens. Drag kings are not my thing either.
Yeah, I was bored
because I didn't want to be with a man.
Well, I don't.
So it's like, what's the point?
That's what they teach you, Anne. Though, like when you're masculine, that's why I went so toxic, because I thought I had to, and it's not. You're just masculine. It's okay. But yeah, I love singing. Like, I get invited to a couple of shows after much pleading, but I love going into the audience and looking at that beautiful girl and just singing to her, and she's just like blushy. It's so cute.
Well, Kiki, I am so grateful you reached out to me. I'm really excited about this podcast. Well, it'll come out, and hold on. Kiki, I'm so glad that you reached out to me. Thank you so much. I am so honored that you shared your story with us today. I think you're going to inspire a lot of people who are in this toxic religion and realizing that, that like seeking validation from a religious church sometimes will not work for you because you're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be in other places. And so thank you for sharing your story. And thank you for your perseverance, man. I know you probably resiliency. That's what the word is. You are really resilient. You kept on you got knocked down. That should be your theme song. I got knocked down, but I got up again. All right. Thank you so much, Kiki.
My pleasure. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA plus stories with Anne-Marie Zanzal. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at annemariezanzal.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit annemariezanzal.com.